Hola, buenos días. Este video habla un poco sobre dos días festivos que típicamente no se celebra en los Estados Unidos, pero se celebra en México y en el mundo hispanohablante. So these two holidays we're going to talk about are not typically celebrated in the US, solamente en Mexico, and then in other places where Spanish is spoken. So the first one is el Día de los Reyes Magos. Reyes Magos is equivalent to the three kings, right? Se celebra en la mayoría del mundo hispanohablante. Celebra el nacimiento de Jesucristo, el bebé Jesús, y también celebra la llegada de los tres Reyes Magos, que llevan regalos a Belén, which is Bethlehem. Sus nombres de los Reyes Magos es Melchor, Gaspar y Baltasar, y se celebra el 6 de enero. So it's not celebrated on Christmas. It's celebrated el 6 de enero, which is January 6th. Es importante para los niños. Kids are excited about this holiday. So ellos escriben cartas a su rey favorito diciendo los regalos que quieren abrir para el 6 de enero. So they choose Melchor, Gaspar o Baltasar, and then they write a carta or a letter to them. Es importante, ¿no? So typically gifts aren't opened on Christmas, la Navidad. They're opened el 6 de enero para los niños. Y lo que hacen es, durante la noche del 5 de enero, los niños ponen sus zapatos cerca de la puerta o de la ventana. So they put their shoes out, which is where the Reyes Magos are going to put the gifts. Y también ponen comida para los reyes y también ponen comida para sus camelos. They arrive on camels, so they also put out some food for the camels and for los Reyes Magos. Y lo que pasa, si los niños son buenos, reciben sus regalos. Si son malos, reciben carbón. So the same tradition we have, if they're good, they receive the gift that they've asked for. If not, they receive carbón, which is cool. And then, of course, toda la comida y paja no está al día siguiente, ¿verdad? To show that the camelos have arrived and so have the Reyes Magos, and they've taken the food and the hay that was set out. There's a lot of similarities if you think about this in los Estados Unidos, comparing Navidad, Christmas, and then also in the Spanish-speaking world, el Día de Reyes Magos. So there's a lot of things that are similar. Los regalos, ¿verdad? Writing a letter to Santa, writing a letter to los Reyes Magos, receiving the gifts that you want if you're good, and not receiving the gifts that you want if you're bad. So you can see there's quite a few similarities. So we're going to skip the questions, and we're going to go on to one other holiday that's celebrated in Mexico, so specifically in Mexico, las Posadas. So las Posadas. Se celebra en diciembre, so not en enero, se celebra en diciembre. Es una fiesta de 9 días. 9 días. So it's a party that lasts 9 days, las Posadas. So típicamente son 9 días antes de la Navidad y representa o recuerdan de los 9 meses de embarazo de María, so antes de que se dio a luz al bebé Jesús. So this is a 9-day holiday or party. And so traditionally, these parties, estas fiestas, recuerdan el peregrinaje de María y José desde su salida de Nazaret hasta Belén. So there's a lot of biblical tradition here. So it's representing when Mary and Joseph left Nazareth and went to Bethlehem. If you remember the story, they were looking for a place to have the baby Jesus. Everywhere was full, right? So it's representing this. So están buscando lugar para quedarse. So they're looking for a place to stay. So typically, this is what happens. Depending on the neighborhood or the community you're in, you might have live Mary and Joseph. So estas dos personas, this is representing María y José, right? Live people. Son voluntarios, and they're walking around essentially in a parade. They're walking around in a group, going from house to house in their barrio, pidiendo hospedaje, looking for a place to stay. Or some people carry around figuras. So some people carry around Mary and Joseph like this. The same thing. They're walking around in a group in the neighborhood looking for a place to stay. And what do? So the tradition, of course, says that María y José tuvieron que ir de puerta a puerta pidiendo posada. So the tradition says that the first place they arrived didn't let them in. So that's essentially what these carolers do. So these people actually are singing as they're going through. When they get to a house, they'll knock on the door, they'll sing. And their tradition is that the people inside, las personas que se quedaron en el interior de la casa, deben negar la posada. So they deny them entrance. So obligando a los peregrinos a pedir posada 2 o 3 veces. So they have to continually ask for posada or to enter. And typically, like I said, they're singing carols, los cantos tradicionales, so some traditional carols. So a couple photos of what it might look like. You might have live music, depending on the neighborhood. The niños also participan. You can see they're carrying, some of them are dressed up. And then also, this whole thing, this is all the tradition of the Posadas. Typically it's just a neighborhood party and there's always a piñata. So traditionally the piñata represents those siete picos. You get one of these types of piñatas. Traditionally it represents the 7 sins, pecados capitales. There's probably more sins than that, but and of course traditionally the palo, the stick, represents Dios, and then you see everything has something that's represented by this piñata, but again, usually it's just a party that happens at the end of las posadas. A couple of the words I was using, so villancianos, carols, el palo, the stick, la venda, los peregrinos, dar a luz is to give birth, la posada, and then el peregrinaje. So we're going to, again, skip the questions, but just a little bit of information about those dos días festivos.